The best part of my job is working with my family every day. And the worst part of my job is working with my family. Corey Harrison looked like he had it all. On Pawn Stars, fame, money, and a family. Business worth millions. But behind the cameras, his life was falling apart in ways nobody saw coming. At 26, he was already fighting for his life in ways that had nothing to do with the shop. By 30, he was making desperate decisions that would shock his own family. The weight of secrets, failed relationships, and dark family tragedies would eventually break him. What happened next changed everything, and it's worse than you think. Corey Harrison was born on April 27, 1983 in Las Vegas. His family already owned the gold and silver pawn shop, which had been co-founded by his grandfather and run by his parents, Rick and Kim. From the start, Corey wasn't just a regular kid in a regular family. He was born into a business that would become one of the most famous pawn shops in the world. While the city around him buzzed with casinos and neon lights, Corey was growing up surrounded by the quiet hum of deals being made, treasures being appraised, and family tensions brewing behind the counter. Corey Harrison was born on April 27, 1983 in Las Vegas. His family already owned the gold and silver pawn shop, which had been co-founded by his grandfather and run by his parents, Rick and Kim. From the start, Corey wasn't just a regular kid in a regular family. He was born into a business that would become one of the most famous pawn shops in the world. While the city around him buzzed with casinos and neon lights, Corey was growing up surrounded by the quiet hum of deals being made, treasures being appraised, and family tensions brewing behind the counter. The shop wasn't just a place to work. It was the family's heartbeat. And Corey was already in the middle of it before he even understood its weight. By the time he was 9, Corey wasn't watching cartoons. He was polishing jewelry, organizing shelves, and watching his father and grandfather closely. They taught him not just how to spot gold or silver, but how to spot people, their tells, their tricks, and their truths. At an age when most kids were still learning basic math, Corey was learning how to read value not just in dollars but in character. By 12, he was already handling real sales. Some of the adult customers didn't even realize a kid was managing their deal until they walked out with less money than they expected. That wasn't luck. Corey had been absorbing everything like a sponge, and by his teenage years he had more hands-on business knowledge than many college grads. At 13, Corey began identifying rare coins, military items, and old guitars with a kind of accuracy that even surprised the staff. He had a gift for spotting authenticity and understanding what something was truly worth. People at the shop started noticing that when Corey made a call, it usually paid off. He had what his grandfather called the eye. It wasn't magic. It was thousands of hours watching, touching, learning, and asking questions. By 16, he was spending thousands on shop purchases and being trusted with big decisions, even when his calls clashed with what others thought. Most of the time he turned out to be right. But growing up in that spotlight wasn't easy. Corey wasn't just a son or a grandson. He was the future of the business, and everyone knew it. Rick, his father, expected him to work harder than anyone else and didn't treat him gently. He made it clear that family ties meant nothing unless you proved yourself. The old man was different, but just as demanding in his own way. Corey had to live up to both their expectations, and he had to do it while customers and staff watched everything. Every family disagreement about a deal or decision happened in front of everyone. By the time he was 17, the pressure was already taking a toll. He started pushing back, but the tension only grew stronger. Those cracks would later turn into must-watch TV. The nickname Big Hose didn't just come from nowhere. By 16, Corey stood 6 feet tall and weighed over 400 pounds. His size made him hard to miss, but it was his growing leadership that made the name stick. Rick started calling him that, not just as a joke, but because he was clearly becoming a boss in the shop. Customers started asking for him directly, knowing he could give a better deal or a faster decision. Employees twice his age started respecting his judgment. The name wasn't just about size anymore. It was about presence. As his role grew, so did the weight on his shoulders. By his mid-teens, Corey was already running parts of the shop. He was still in high school, but outside of class he was managing inventory, negotiating high-dollar purchases, and handling customers with confidence. The gold and silver pawn shop had over 30 employees, and many of them were older and more experienced. Corey had to prove himself every single day. His father kept handing him more responsibility, and Corey kept stepping up, but it came at a cost. While other kids were going to dances or hanging out at the mall, Corey was in the back office making deals and learning the hard way what could go wrong. The first time he made a big purchase without everyone's approval, it caused a blow-up. Corey had a habit of spending big on things he liked. Classic cars, motorcycles, unusual collectibles. Some of these items made a profit, but others raised eyebrows. Rick and the old man didn't always agree with his decisions, and the arguments could be loud in public. These moments created deep tension in the family and staff, but they also made for great television. When Pawn Stars finally aired, Corey wasn't afraid to take risks, and even when it went wrong, he stood by his calls. Corey made a decision early on to skip the usual school path. While his classmates were studying for exams, he was learning how to identify Civil War swords and test the purity of gold. He missed out on things like parties, sports, and just hanging out. But in return, he got a skill set that few people his age ever develop. He didn't have a diploma from a fancy school, but he could tell you what a 19th century musket was worth within seconds. That gamble paid off when Pawn Stars became a hit because suddenly his niche knowledge had value far beyond the shop. Being a boss at a young age brought its own set